I was 1,000 miles away in Denver when my phone vibrated against the mahogany conference table. Motion detected. Living room. I opened the app, expecting a delivery driver. Instead, I saw my parents, Sandra and Stephen, standing in the center of my sanctuary with a stranger holding a clipboard, a contractor. They weren't watering my plants. They were pressing a tape measure against the glass wall of my hydroponic garden. My mother's voice came through the speaker, tiny and distorted, but unmistakable. Tanner needs this space for his content studio. Just knock the wall down. Morgan won't make a scene. She'll just accept it. She was right about one thing. I wouldn't make a scene. I would make a war. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police, not yet. That would have been a temporary fix for structural rot. I needed total demolition. I closed the security app and opened my travel portal. I booked the next flight out of Denver International, one way. I wasn't going back to visit family. I was going back to liquidate a failed investment. I knew exactly when to strike. Tanner wasn't known for discretion. For weeks, he had been posting about a major reveal for his followers this Saturday at 2 p.m., a grand opening of his new content house. He wanted an audience. He wanted to show the world his success. I decided then that I would give him exactly what he wanted. I would be his surprise guest. The flight to Seattle took 3 hours. I didn't spend a single minute of it crying or mourning the relationship I thought I had with my parents. I spent it working. I bought the Wi-Fi package and opened my laptop. It was time to organize the archives. I created a new folder on my desktop and named it simply The Ledger. I started pulling files, bank statements from 5 years ago, Venmo histories, signed agreements for business loans that were never repaid. I dragged and dropped every transaction into the folder. There was the $4,000 for his podcast equipment gathering dust in a garage, the $7,000 for a drop shipping business that never shipped a single product, the $10,000 for a car down payment because he needed reliable transportation for job interviews he never attended. I looked at the total sum on the spreadsheet, $115,000. That wasn't brotherly support, that was embezzlement. My parents hadn't just enabled him, they had facilitated the theft of my future to fund his delusions, and now they were literally measuring my walls for destruction. I stared at the clouds shifting outside the window. For years, I had treated my family like a charity case, convinced my financial stability was a resource I owed them. I thought that if I gave enough, they would finally see me as valuable. But looking at the cold, hard numbers on my screen, I realized the truth. I wasn't a valued family member. I was just an asset they were ready to strip for parts. I closed the spreadsheet and picked up my phone. There was one person who might still be on my side. Haley, Tanner's fiancée. She had called me 3 times yesterday, leaving breathless, anxious voicemails, trying to warn me about something, but I had been too busy with the conference to listen. Now I understood why she sounded so desperate. I typed a text. I saw the security feed. I know what they are doing. I am landing in 2 hours. Do not tell them I am coming. Meet me at the airport. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then a reply. Thank God. I have documents you need to see. It is worse than you think. I turned off my phone and leaned back against the headrest. The anger that had been burning in my chest cooled into something solid and heavy, like a stone. I wasn't afraid of the confrontation anymore. I was looking forward to it. They wanted to break down my walls. Fine, but they forgot that I was the one who built the foundation, and I knew exactly where to place the charges to bring the whole thing down. I sat in the rental car 3 blocks away from my own driveway, watching the digital clock on the dashboard tick toward 2 o'clock. My laptop was open on the passenger seat, the screen glowing with the spreadsheet I had named The Ledger. It was a complete autopsy of my relationship with my family, quantified in cold, hard rows and columns. I scrolled through the history. 5 years, $115,000. It was staggering when I looked at it all at once. There was the $20,000 for Tanner's lifestyle brand launch party, an event that consisted of him buying tables at a club for people who didn't know his name. There was the $8,000 for his emergency rent when he claimed his roommate had stolen his money. I found out later the roommate had moved out 3 months prior. There were endless transfers of $500, $1,000, $2,000, slowly, quietly bleeding me dry. I closed my eyes and pictured my house, specifically the sunroom I had converted into a hydroponic garden. It was my sanctuary. I had spent months researching nutrient solutions and lighting cycles. It was the only place in the world where I felt completely at peace, surrounded by the quiet hum of water pumps and the clean scents of basil and mint. It was a living system that required patience, care, and respect, everything my family lacked, and they were going to destroy it with a sledgehammer. To them, my sanctuary was just wasted square footage. They wanted to replace my living, breathing garden with ring lights, green screens, and a neon sign that said Tanner's World. They wanted to turn my temple of silence into a factory of noise. For years, people had asked me why I did it. Why did I keep writing the checks? Why did I keep answering the phone, looking at the numbers? Now I finally understood the mechanism behind my own behavior. It wasn't generosity. It wasn't even love, not really. It was a trauma response. I had been forging the links of an invisible chain my entire life. Growing up, I learned that my parents' affection was a volatile currency. If I wasn't useful, I was invisible. If I wasn't solving a problem, I was creating one. So I learned to fawn. I learned to anticipate their needs and pay for their approval before they even asked. I had convinced myself that if I just paid enough, if I was just successful enough, I could buy my way into being a valued member of this family. The $115,000 wasn't a loan, it was a survivor's tax. I had been paying protection money to the people who were supposed to protect me. I thought the money was a bridge connecting us, but it was actually a wall. As long as I kept paying, they didn't have to see me as a person. They only had to see me as a resource. But the bank was closed. The subscription had expired. I looked at the security app on my phone one last time. I could see them moving inside my house. They were laughing. My mother was pointing at my grandmother's vintage armchair, instructing Tanner to drag it out to the wet lawn to make room for his equipment. They looked so comfortable in their theft. They thought they owned me because I had spent a lifetime letting them rent me. I shut the laptop with a snap. I wasn't just going to evict them from my house. I was going to evict the scared little girl inside me who thought she had to pay for the privilege of existing. I put the car in gear. It was time to go home. Saturday, 2 o'clock. I parked my rental car at the end of the block and watched. The invasion was already underway. My security app had been pinging me for the last hour, but seeing it in person was different. It wasn't just pixels on a screen anymore. It was a physical violation. My driveway was full. Tanner's leased sports car was parked sideways, taking up 2 spots. My parents' SUV was on the lawn, the tires sinking into the soft earth I had spent weekends aerating. The front door was wide open. I could see people moving inside, not just my family, but strangers, Tanner's crew, kids with cameras and ring lights, treating my home like a public park. I walked toward the house. The sound of bass-heavy music thumped from inside, rattling the windows. My grandmother's vintage armchair, the one I had spent a fortune restoring, was sitting on the front lawn. It had been dragged out to make room, abandoned on the wet grass like trash. A half-empty energy drink can was balanced on its velvet armrest. I stepped onto the porch. My mother, Sandra, was standing in the foyer directing 2 of Tanner's friends who were carrying a large green screen. She looked radiant, energized, the way she always looked when catering to Tanner's whims. "Careful with that. We need the lighting to be perfect for the stream." She turned and saw me. For a second, she froze. Then her expression shifted from annoyance to annoyed. "Morgan, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Denver until Tuesday." "I came back early. I wanted to see the renovations." "Oh, don't start," she snapped, waving a hand dismissively. "We're just rearranging a few things for Tanner. He has a huge event today. You should be happy for him. He's finally making it." "Making it?" I repeated. by knocking down my walls. It's just a wall, Morgan, and those plants. Honestly, it was a waste of space. Tanner needs room to create. You need to loosen up anyway.
You're always so uptight. I walked past her into the living room. It was unrecognizable. My furniture was gone, replaced by beanbag chairs and tripods. And there, in the center of the room, standing in front of a ring light the size of a tractor tire, was Tanner. He was holding his phone up, talking to an invisible audience, his voice pitched high and manic. Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to the crib. We are live from the new HQ. This is where the magic happens. We got the crypto charts, we got the gaming setup, we got... He stopped when he saw me standing in the frame. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second before he tried to recover. Yo, look who it is. Special guest appearance. My sister Morgan just flew in to celebrate the launch. Say hi to the stream, Morgan. He tried to put his arm around me to pull me into his delusion. I stepped back. The camera was still rolling. The comments were scrolling by on his phone screen, thousands of people watching. Perfect. I'm not here to celebrate, I said, looking directly into the lens of his phone. I'm here to evict you. Tanner laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. Classic Morgan, always joking. Guys, she's a riot. I'm not joking, I said, my voice cutting through his performance. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. This is a cease and desist, and this, I held up the thick stack of papers, is the ledger. Morgan, stop. My father, Stephen, appeared from the kitchen, looking flushed and angry. You're embarrassing him. Put that away. No, I said. I turned back to the camera. For anyone watching, my name is Morgan. I own this house. Tanner doesn't live here. He lives in our parents' basement, and the success he's bragging about, it was funded by $115,000 he stole from me over the last 5 years. The room went silent. The music stopped. Tanner looked at the phone, then at me, his face draining of color. Turn it off, he hissed. Turn the stream off. Why? I asked. Don't you want your fans to see the real you? The one who borrows money for rent and spends it on bottle service? The one who needs his mommy to help him break into his sister's house? I opened the folder and pulled out the first bank statement. August 12th, $4,000 for podcast equipment. Never recorded a single episode. September 15th, $7,000 for a business license. The business doesn't exist. January 4th, $10,000 for a car down payment. Where's the car, Tanner? That's enough. My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. You are embarrassing him. How can you be so selfish? I looked at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. Selfish? You're measuring my house for demolition while I'm out of town, and I'm the selfish one? We were going to tell you. We just wanted it to be a surprise. A surprise? Like the time you surprised me by giving him my college fund? Or the time you surprised me by co-signing his loans with my credit? Tanner lunged for the phone, trying to end the stream, but he fumbled it. It clattered to the floor, screen up, still broadcasting. The comments were going nuclear. Is this real? Did he really steal from his sister? Scammer. Fake. I looked down at the phone, then back at my brother. He wasn't a tycoon. He wasn't an influencer. He was a child in a man's body, terrified because the lights had finally been turned on. Get out, I said. All of you, get out of my house. You can't do this, my father sputtered. We're family. Not anymore. Now you're just trespassers. I didn't back down. I held my ground as my father sputtered, his face turning a molded red. But before he could launch into another defense of his golden boy, the front door opened again. Haley walked in. Tanner's head snapped up. Babe, what are you doing here? Tell them to leave. They're ruining everything. Haley didn't look at him. She looked at me, gave a small, grim nod, and then walked into the center of the room. She was holding a manila envelope. She looked calm, but her knuckles were white where she gripped the paper. I'm not here to help you, Tanner, her voice shaking slightly, but gaining strength with every word. I'm here to end this. End what? Tanner laughed nervously, glancing at the phone on the floor, realizing the stream was still live to thousands. Babe, come on, not now. Yes, now, Haley said. She opened the envelope and pulled out a document. Do you recognize this? Tanner squinted at it, and then his eyes went wide. Panic, real and raw, flashed across his face. Where did you get that? From the glove box of your new car, Haley said. The one you told me you bought with your crypto gains. The one you said was paid off in full. She held the document up to the camera on the floor, then turned it toward my parents.
It's a lease agreement for a $68,000 luxury SUV, but look at the signature at the bottom. My father squinted at the paper. That says Morgan. Exactly, Haley said. He didn't buy the car, he leased it, and he forged Morgan's signature as the co-signer because his credit score is in the trash. I felt the air leave my lungs. I snatched the paper from her hand. There it was, my name scrawled in handwriting that was trying too hard to look like mine, but bore the telltale jagged loops of Tanner's script. He had committed identity theft against his own sister. You forged my signature, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You stole my identity. It's just a cosign, Tanner yelled, desperate. Now I was going to make the payments. I just needed a little boost to get approved. The car is part of the brand. Morgan, you have to spend money to make money. You committed a felony, I said. That's not spending money. That's fraud. But Haley wasn't done. She reached back into the envelope. There's more, she said, and this time she looked at my parents with pity. Morgan, when you texted me about the security feed, I did some digging. I ran a credit check on everyone in this house. She pulled out 2 more sheets of paper. Sandra, Stephen, do you know you have 3 credit cards maxed out in your names that were opened 6 months ago? My mother blinked, confused. What? No, we don't. We only have the 1 card for emergencies. Not anymore, Haley said. Tanner opened them. He used your social security numbers. He's racked up $40,000 in debt in your names to fund his lifestyle. He hasn't made a single payment. You're in default. Your credit is ruined. The silence in the room was absolute. My father's phone pinged. He pulled it out, frowning. It was a credit monitoring alert. He stared at the screen, scrolling, his face losing all color. He looked up at Tanner, then at the papers in Haley's hand, and finally he understood. You stole from us, my father whispered. After everything we gave you, after we mortgaged the house for your legal fees last time, you stole our identities? Tanner was backing away now, shaking his head. I was going to pay it back once the crypto course took off. I was going to pay it all back with interest. You guys just don't have any vision. Vision? I said. You bankrupted your own parents. You stole my identity. You were about to destroy my home. That's not vision, Tanner. That's predation. I looked at my parents. They were standing there, broken. The son they had protected, the son they had chosen over me time and time again, had eaten them alive, and they hadn't even felt the teeth until it was too late. Get out, I said again. All of you, now. My mother looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Morgan, please, we didn't know. You didn't want to know. You were so busy building him up that you didn't notice he was tearing you down, and you were so busy tearing me down that you didn't notice I was the only one holding you up. I pointed to the door. Leave before I call the police and add trespassing to the list of charges. They left. My father stumbling like an old man, my mother sobbing, Tanner running out to his leased car that was about to be repossessed. Haley stayed behind for a moment. I'm sorry, I should have told you sooner. I told you when it mattered, I said. Thank you, she nodded, and walked out, closing the door on the wreckage of my family. I stood in the silence of my home. The ring light was still glowing, the green screen was still up, but the noise was gone. The parasites were gone. I picked up Tanner's phone from the floor. The stream had ended when the battery died, but the comments,
The comments were forever, and so was the truth. I walked to my garden wall. It was still standing. They hadn't touched it yet. I pressed my hand against the glass, feeling the cool surface. My sanctuary was safe. My ledger was closed. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just the survivor. I was the victor. The police arrived 12 minutes later. I had called them myself, stating clearly that I had trespassers on my property who were refusing to leave. 2 officers walked up the driveway, their expressions professional and unreadable. I met them on the porch, handing over a USB drive containing the security footage, the live stream recording, and the digital copies of the forged lease and the credit reports. "He's inside," I said, pointing to Tanner, who was sitting on the floor with his head in his hands. "Tanner, he committed identity theft against me and our parents. He also trespassed and destroyed property." The officers went inside. I watched from the doorway as they spoke to Tanner. He tried to argue at first, his voice rising in that familiar whine, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, a family dispute. But then Haley handed them the physical copy of the forged lease. The officer looked at it, looked at Tanner, and then pulled out his handcuffs. "Tanner, stand up. Put your hands behind your back." My mother screamed. It was a raw, animal sound that echoed through the house. "No, you can't take him. He's just a boy. He didn't mean it." She rushed forward, grabbing the officer's arm. He gently but firmly pushed her back. "Ma'am, step back. Your son is arrested for fraud and identity theft." "Morgan, stop them," she shrieked, turning on me, her face twisted with desperation. "Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave him permission."